Welcome to Endurance Noise Daily. It is Monday, August 24th, 2020, and I actually saw some blue skies today. The smoke in California is clearing out a little bit. Bakersfield is the bottom of a U, and so all the junk always blows here and just kind of settles here. That's probably why we have some of the worst air quality in the country. And that, along with, we've got the oil business and the ag business spewing who knows what. But today there's a little light at the end of the tunnel that we had some blue sky this morning. Not quite so hot, because the only good thing about the smoke is it lowers the temperature because it's like a big shade, and we have some spectacular sunsets as well. Speaking of fire, yesterday when Blanca and I were out walking Sunday morning, we saw a fire in the area. It was amazing. It was kind of like the air was full of smoke, but then you could see the stream going through the smoke, which was a little darker, and it turned out to be a fire. It ended up being a fire at Stramler Park, which is next to Bakersfield Ballpark, Sam Lynn Ballpark. And this is a string of fires has been going on downtown area. And speaking of the weasel, she just called me. She had to go into work today for orientation. The county is hiring once again, and so she had to go in for a little bit, and then she has to come back at 2:30. But she's been staying home throughout this whole thing since March. She's been working from home, doing a really great job. But they are hiring for the county. So yeah, I was talking about these fires. Downtown Bakersfield's been having some fires, and I'm sure that it has to do with some of the homeless. There was a furniture store whose garage was lit on fire, a building next to Dave's Tacos, and a couple other small little fires. So we definitely have a fire bug going on. Kern County Fire Department has not answered any questions and not sure what's going on, but they're not no statements. And so speaking of, COVID and fires and health and whatnot, my wife's been staying home, and so is my other sons from work. Today in Bakersfield, schools have started. I think almost all the schools. I know my youngest son goes to Bakersfield College. He's doing virtual, and everyone else seems to be doing online, all the elementary schools. I hear that Zoom crashed today, so that's not good. So kind of endurance noise. There's kind of been a controversy or talking on the internet about, should we be running races during COVID, the virtual races, of course, but even the virtual races, you can get worn out and then your immunity will be lower. And of course, the big controversy is, do you wear a mask when you're in races? And I said, well, we've got the world track and fields going on over in Europe, Stockholm, Monaco, and the athletes are masked up before and after competition, but during the competition, they're not. And of course, here in America, our major sports are playing. Of course, the NBA is in a bubble, the NHL is in a bubble, but the NFL and Major League aren't in bubbles, and so it's going to be interesting what's going on. I've been watching the behind-the-scenes thing on HBO. I always forget what it's called, on the football, Hard Knocks. Yeah, they're in Los Angeles following the Chargers and the LA Rams. In the first couple of weeks, they're doing it without any pads. They've got all kinds of testing procedures. They're testing them with the nose swab, and they're also doing the blood for antibodies. And they have these little beepers on them when they're ready to get close. But there's an interesting article that I just saw today in Sports Illustrated talking to doctors about whether they would play in the professional leagues. And basically the doctor said they'd play in the NBA and the NHL, but not in the NFL and the Major League Baseball. And so they talked to doctors with COVID expertise. These are people actually looking at dealing with patients. And the results were stark. 90% of the 146 doctors who responded to the survey said they would definitely or probably play in the NBA, which is a lockdown in Orlando. In fact, I'm going to watch some of the games, I think, today. I haven't been watching any of the regular season, but I guess now they're in playoffs. Listen to Bill Simmons a lot and been talking about it, so I might turn the games on depending on what's going on. But first I got to go out and DoorDash. In fact, that's what Blanca called me. Say I got the car, so I can go hit the DoorDash. And then the NHL is playing in two bubbles in Canada. But football... And but the doctor said that 60% would say they wouldn't play in the NFL. 59% said they wouldn't play in the Major League Baseball under current protocols. One called the Major League Baseball's plan a traveling infection hub. Several doctors said Major League Baseball's COVID outbreaks, which have forced 14 teams to postpone 42 games, was easy to predict. Doctors say they would even be less inclined to play in the NFL, which has a similar plan to Major League, but for more physical, intimate contact. And of course, NHL and Major League Baseball say doctors we surveyed don't understand or appreciate the protocols. But I guarantee the NFL and Major League doctors don't have as much experience as the doctors who say, no, I'm not interested. They weren't like just calling up random doctors. They were talking to people who are dealing with COVID and experts in it. says Major League and NFL says that they will change their protocols as they needed to, and they really want to have a season, but most people are figuring that the NFL is not going to have a complete season. Baseball may finally get down. So it says doctors we interviewed say the plans are too risky. They disagree about the number of likely positives and also the gravity of each one. They also have backgrounds in immunology, cardiology, pulmonology, and nephrology. They have studied the spread and the potential long-term ramifications of COVID. Their answers spawn from two widely accepted principles in the scientific community. One is that if you don't completely lock down, there will be outbreaks. The other is that with COVID-19, what doesn't kill you makes you weaker. The death rate for pro athletes will be very low, but there's a possible short-term and long-term effects. Most doctors we surveyed are considered potential health problems, but now many remains unknown about the virus, that even if they were offered millions to play football or baseball this year, they said they would probably stay home. Now, I had a fall in March would really set me back, but back in the end of the year, my son, who goes to Bakersfield College, he got really sick, just with sort of like the COVID symptoms, but we didn't have we didn't have the loss of smell or taste. Then I went to the Snowdrop 55 hour, and about a day into it, just felt terrible, and then it lingered for quite some time. And I know my lung function's been messed up when I did races since then. Maybe I didn't have it. I mean, I wasn't tested for antibodies. I believe I only, when I was in the hospital, was tested with the nose scrape. So who knows? But I know that my breathing issues have not improved since I had that illness back in January. And it's only getting a little better. Like flats, I'm pretty good, but anytime a hill, that's why I'm not doing the High Sierra Trail hike this summer with my friends who are going up in about 10 days, because I just can't even go up a little hill that goes over an overpass. So the national conversation of COVID-19 has been framed around the death rate, creating perception that patients either die or recover fully. Every doctor we spoke to painted a very different picture. One of the guys I worked with, Duke cardiologist Stuart Russell, says he still gets short of breath walking fast. He's a normal, healthy 4-year-old, and who the heck knows what's it going to be over the next 10 years. And another doctor says the patients they've taken care of, there's no way someone's going to resume their football career. They were short of breath going up a flight of stairs, and they did get better. These generally fit people who have quote-unquote mild COVID, don't go to the hospital, didn't need oxygen, and a month later, they are still short of breath. And so the USC cardiologist says, I don't think the concern would be I'm going to get the virus and I'm going to be in the hospital and die. That's possible, but I think you're also grappling with the possibility the virus can induce permanent damage in your lungs or your heart. That would hurt your ability to be a professional athlete. You'll also be concerned for your long-term health. There's some serious impact even on young athletes who get this virus. And that's the thing. If you watch like these behind-the-scenes sport things, getting into the big leagues is so difficult. Everyone's so talented, and it's just tiny percentages of who makes it and who doesn't make it. So you get this COVID, it could knock down, your physical abilities just that little bit that you would never get to play ever. And that's kind of what the doctors here are saying, is that, veterans, and they're hammering big checks, maybe they might take the risk to keep hammering the big check. But if they've really got a lot of money in the bank, they might also sit out the season and wait for things to die off. Because, if you got a lot of money, you don't really need to play. Of course, some of the sports like football, their careers are so long, and it's just really tough. But it says, like it says, if an athlete gets COVID-19 and loses 5% of their long-term lung function, that could take the athlete from the best in the world to fringe pro, depending on the sport. The cardiologist says, I think the problem we're running into here is we just found out about the virus like 8 months ago. We have no idea what will happen in 5 years from now or 3 years from now, because we don't know anyone who's had it that long. All we're seeing is that this is not like the flu. There's vascular inflammation that occurs. The virus actually damages the vessels in your body. We're seeing things we don't usually see. We can only speculate. And then it also goes on to say, we're seeing some sporadic cases, reports of people who aren't shaking it. We do CAT scans, CT scans of these people a few months later and find permanent changes in their lungs. We don't have enough time to know what's going on, so my concern level is unfortunately going up a little bit, because we're realizing that, there may be some stuff that isn't going away. So interesting, kind of take it to heart with your athleticism, whether you're going to compete in events. Like I said, people are talking about, do you race with mask on? I think if you're outdoors and you're, socially distanced, which, so you're like running and hiking, I think you're going to be okay, or at least that's the risk I'm going to take. But I think that's kind of what it has to be. It has to be left up to everyone. You kind of make an informed decision. Granted, some people don't have a whole lot of information and are just going on their gut feeling or their political beliefs or whatever like that. But as I always say, stay healthy, which means, you've got to make these decisions and make them informed decisions. So stay healthy, be boring, not epic, and I'll see you guys later.